Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back from the New York City studios of MLG. We got Sen there thinking about what he's going to do in game number 2, currently down 0-1 to his opponent on the left. We got Alicia. We're going to have to ask these players if they're ready. Of course, we're currently in the second match of the night. Snoot took out Nesty in match 1, 2-1. We'll have to see who wins here. Both players are ready. I'm in start game.
Of course, this map is going to be a little bit different. Belshire Vestige. Of course, it's a much shorter distance to move around, although in the last game, with the way Sen took his third base, they actually spawned very close to each other. One thing to keep in mind on this map is, of course, trying to defend both the left and right-hand side of the map at the same time can be tricky. Yeah. Both for if a Zerg player wants to utilize Swarm Hosts, very difficult for him to cover both sides of the map. In the same hand, if a Zerg wants to play a mobility game with Roaches, Speed, and Zamulus, it's sometimes hard for the Protoss to cover both sides of the map as well against those counterattacks.
Of course, another big difference is, the size of the map and the fact that this is a 2-player map and not a 4-player map. So these guys are going to know exactly where each other's is spawning. So there's no kind of, decisions you have to make as far as, all right, which third do I take compared to our starting positions. Both these guys know exactly where each other are. Let me introduce the players, though, here. In game number 2 of this best of 3, in the bottom right-hand location, we have the Red Zerg player hailing from Taiwan in a position where he must win 2 in a row to advance to the winner's match. Representing Team Gamma Bears, he is Sen. And his opponent in the top left-hand location, your Red Protoss player hailing from Korea. And representing Team Axiom, currently up 1-0. He is 1 win away from advancing on to play Snoot in the winner's match. He is Alicia. Of course, many are, at first confused when they see his name and they start making assumptions of his gender. He is in fact a male, but he has chosen Alicia. When people ask me about that, I like giving them an example of another, someone I know who has a feminine type name. I say, well, Axslav has a feminine name, but he's a guy. I'm just kidding. Nick, I'm kidding. Don't look at me like that.
So going forward, we see Sen again going for the hatchery first. This is something we talked about before, actually, in last week's cast, as it's a mild risk for a Zerg player to do the hatchery first, because if the Protoss scouts early enough to block it, then all of a sudden they already delayed their pool to get through their minerals and they're a little bit behind. But if you know your opponent does favor those gateway expansions, you can tell, okay, there's no threat of cannon rush, and the probe scout is usually a little bit later.
Still,
he's trying
to have a forge, does he?
That's right. And okay, of course, Sen knows this by now, most likely, because Overlord has checked the natural. But wait, no. He still thinks it could be an in-base forge, which does sometimes happen.
It does.
So he's pulling a few drones.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it's really hard to say who came on top of that little engagement. Of course, Alicia forcing Sen to pull those drones, which you're losing mining time. But again, losing the money off of having to cancel that pylon.
That's a move that's really great when you gateway expand. Of course, it's a little bit more expensive if you're going for a Nexus first, because there's more of an opportunity cost. If you're getting that pylon, it's slowing down your first gateway, or it's slowing down your Nexus. It's slowing down something that's actually important to your tech progression. But with the gateway expand, you're actually just sitting on that money anyway until you get enough to build the Nexus. So the only cost there is 25 minerals, which makes it a really great move if your opponent falls for it. Sen did, of course. It's a small move. But StarCraft is a game of small inches,
yes.
and eventually they can add up to a foot. Sometimes you'll see a player make a huge mistake and that'll decide the game. But other times it's a whole bunch of little small moves that all add up to a victory screen.
For our non-Americans, think of centimeters evolving into a meter, perhaps.
That's right.
I don't want to alienate anyone out there. But, this is pretty interesting because Sen immediately taking his gas after identifying his opponent, went for that Gateway Expo, because realizing, okay, my opponent is investing a lot into tech at this point in the game as far as getting that Cyber Core out early, getting that Mothership Core out early, which means he might have the ability to apply a good amount of aggression towards me. So I'm going to get my speed out as fast as possible so I can be able to deal with, such aggression.
And of course, Sen making plenty of drones behind us. This game also getting the gas and the speed upgrade before going to that third hatchery. So recognizing that this is a map where that gateway pressure can be a little more annoying. The spawns are a little bit closer to the bases, and when to play a little bit safer. In fact, actually, a spine crawler.
And he's getting a second gas. Is he going to throw down like 2 Evo chambers soon and try to go for that crazy fast, hyper upgraded Ling stuff?
I think he is, but the Spine Core is still throwing me a little bit off because even with that
Yeah, that's a
build,
good point.
as long as you get the speedlings early and scout around, make sure there's no proxy pylons, there's really no need for Spine Core for at least 7 more minutes.
Oh, that's a good thing to see. And that Overlord sees that pylon, so he will be able to know where that is. Try to track down that probe, of course. As long as you can, keep that probe from throwing down those pesky forward pylons, you can feel relatively safe against that aggression. But Sen, as you said, put in a second spine.
His Zerglings missed the probe.
Oh.
That is a ninja probe.
Well, don't speak too soon, Mr. Nick. Still be found.
I mean, they have to know it's somewhere in that corner of the map.
Yeah, that looks like they're heading in that direction too. Speed is about to kick in as well, which will facilitate. Oh, those Lings coming so close to scouting. Nope, going right past it. We see a Phoenix in production.
I mean, the bottom, like, even if he gets a proxy pylon, Sen's made so much defense.
Yeah, 2 spines is natural.
There's no way, unless it's a super committed gateway pressure, that Alicia can really get anything done. But on the other hand, he doesn't need to. Right? His opponent's making 2 spine cores. His opponent is still only on 2 bases, and he's been teching for the airplay. So now Sen realizes that, knows there's Phoenixes in play. And going forward, Sen's goal is going to be 1, take control of the map, deny all the pylons and his zealots. 2, take a 3rd base, and then 3, deny his opponent a 3rd base for as long as possible, utilizing speedlings.
Layer already done, so he wants to be able to start 2-2 right away, and of course you need the layer to do that. Also look out for a fairly fast infestation pit and a fairly fast hive, so you can get that Ultralisk Cavern up as fast as possible. A lot of Zergs doing this lately. Of course, a nice timing that tries to exploit that is some sort of Colossi timing off of 2 bases. And then Mothership Core recalling out before the Ultras come out, denying a potential base of your opponent, and then, preparing that 3rd defense to deal with that Ultra transition. But for now, Sen still trying to track down his enemies and spots those 2 Zealots there hiding under that tree. Sen saying, you know what, get out of here, man, I see you.
A very important move by Sen there. If he missed those Zealots for a little bit longer, Alicia could have warped in 3 more with this pylon and canceled the 3rd hatchery. In fact, Sen still wants to find that pylon. That could give him nightmares later down the road.
We saw Alicia have a pylon up for quite a while in the last game. That gave Sen a pretty big headache, it looked like. We see Phoenixes going across the field, getting some scouting done, also trying to get some kills on Queens, but there are Spore Crawlers in place. 2 Queens at the natural there, so those Phoenixes gotta be careful. One getting very low in health, but he is gonna stay alive. Oh, another Spore there, trying to get that damage done.
The Zealot count is up to 6 now by the proxy pylon. Sen still has no idea about this. This hatchery may go down before he can get reinforcements ready, just because he's caught so off guard.
Could be a costly mistake here from Sen, not able to identify that pylon. We see his little clicks over there with the Speedlings trying to prevent this hatchery from being canceled. Can he save it? Slide the Zealots targeting it down desperately, trying to get their job done, but it looks like Sen might barely have enough to take down these Zealots. The hatchery is going to survive. Yes, it will. But it's so low on health. Look out for more units to come out. He needs to identify that pylon. I think he's
okay. I'm about to say, if he misses
I was about
this
to be
again,
like, you know what?
that would not have been a happy moment for Sen. Of course, such an important move there to keep that hatchery alive. Losing that 3rd hatchery is so big because as he goes to high tech, he really wants this 6 gas income because he needs to continue upgrades. He's looking to either transition to Ultralisk or potentially, if his opponent starts to counter Ultralisk too much, make too many Immortals, he can do a weird type of muted transition.
Ling's heading straight for that 3rd base, 1 force field going down. Of course, an important thing to do here as Zerg, you have so many Lings out in the early stages of the game. Delaying that 3rd as long as possible is going to be fantastic. Now, Alicia has to be feeling a little bit happy right now because he's getting that 3rd up without too much trouble, but Sen is not done. Another force field going down, and Alicia preserves the life of his own 3rd.
You know what's really interesting there is the fact that Sen was able to defend his own 3rd. Alicia's warping, even though it didn't kill the hatchery, was actually huge.
Because the Lings were staying back home.
Exactly, and Alicia could not have built this Nexus with just 4 sentries and 2 Zealots to defend it. There's no way he could have actually got the pylons finished, got the Nexus up, if the Speedings were on his side of the map and ready to deny that Nexus. But the counterattack forced Sen back, and now Alicia is on 3 bases, solidified, before Sen is able to get those Ultras out in the field.
Now we're approaching the time where Alicia wants to start moving out. Now he has to be very careful because as a Zerg player who's going a lot of Lings, very well upgraded, Sen is going to keep an eagle's eye on his opponent's army. Once his opponent's army moves out, look out for attempted run-bys into the main, into the natural expansion. 2 Lings can kill the Nexus surprisingly fast, so Alicia needs to make sure to keep his insurance up back home so he's not vulnerable to these Ling counterattacks.
notice how Sen is making queens 4 at a time. If you're going to use Ultralisk, queens are insanely important to add to the mix. Ultras on their own, not that great unless you massively outnumber your opponent. Of course, if you're doing this build, you're not going to have an economic advantage like you might doing some other Zerg builds that involve a faster third base. So it's super important to have the queens in conjunction with the Ultras.
Templar Archives just now finishing here from Alicia, so not late in any regard. Of course, Archon's going to be fairly instrumental against Ultralisk play. We see him not starting Storm and immediately starting 4 High Templars, so realizing that fact. Also, 2 Immortals on the way, so it looks like he's kind of abandoned that attempted push across the map with the Colossi to try to exploit the time before those Ultras come out. Instead, he's going to play more defensive. He knows exactly what his opponent is doing, and this has been the big question for Protosses lately. How do we deal with this Mass Ling Ultra upgraded style? My opponent has the map control with those speedlings. You know, how do I deny these additional bases? How do I get my own 4th base? It looks like Alicia playing relatively passive for now and starting to prepare for that transition.
He's already making these pylon walls as well to make his defense much better. Starting some Warp Prism has too.
Ooh.
But Sen
remember the hatchery's low from before.
It is, but
it's
yeah, not quite enough to take it out in this case. A few transfusions, of course, can heal that up.
I like the idea from Alicia, though, recognizing, okay, I got that thing low, let's just see where it's at, and maybe I can get it later.
It's worth checking out.
Yep.
And a very small investment. This point in the game, 3 Zealots are not a big deal. We can see Alicia trying to crank out as many Immortals as possible, also going for Psystorm. Psystorm is very important because you want to be able to clear out all the speedings as fast as possible so that the Ultras are isolated. And then, of course, you can also use the Templar, feedbacking queens. Even Psystorming queens, if they're stacked up enough, can help them force them to use some transfuses on themselves.
Also, Vipers, feedback is important against those. And a lot of Zergs, after they do this Ling Ultra thing, they go to a muta transition where they make like 40 mutas. So having Storm against that is very important as well. I'm a little bit surprised Sen hasn't taken his 5th base yet. He's had map control for a while. He's identified that his opponent has been on 3 bases for a long time as well. So I really don't see a reason not to, but it looks like he's content to stay on 4 bases, keeping those Ultralings and Queens alive, adding on additional Spine Crawlers. Also a Greater Spire just now finishing, so we're definitely proceeding into the later game.
This Broodlord transition could be key to Sen. If he can bank up enough resources and his opponent makes too many robotics units and counters the Ultralist composition, Sen could do a switch after the first engagement.
A bunch of Zealots being warped in on the left-hand side of the map, a Warp Prism sending him there, and this is great because Alicia is trying to secure a base on the right-hand side of the map, so he wants to pull his opponent's army to the left side so he can keep that 4th alive for as long as possible, set up defenses for that as well. Zealots heading straight for that 4th base. Also, one Zealot taking down the 5th. That's interestingly enough being taken underneath the main base of Alicia, but it looks like these Zealots are going to be tracked down after doing a little bit of damage, but nothing too scary. But again, more importantly, Alicia's Nexus at this 4th on the right-hand side should be able to finish up, which is pretty much all he wanted to accomplish with that Zealot counterattack.
And look at how he establishes these pylon walls with every choke that he might need to defend against Ultralisk. It's so important to have the pylon wall set up. Ultralisk tear through your forces so fast without buildings in front, it can be difficult to take Ultras on until you reach a max army.
Warp isn't being very pesky here from Alicia, and it's only going to get worse because the Dark Shrine is now on the way from the Protoss player. I feel like Sen needs to make sure to take down this Warp Prism, or at least set up sufficient defenses at his, sufficient static defenses at his exterior bases so that it doesn't become too big of a problem. We have 8 Broodlords in production here from Sen. I have a feeling he's about to start being very aggressive.
As soon as those Broodlords complete, it's going to be a very difficult army. Oh, a nice little move there to take out the Warp Prism. Loses the hatchery on the far left side.
How did he take out the Warp Prism there?
He used the Viper to abduct it into Queens.
Fancy.
It was off in the airspace, right?
Yep.
But yanked it in there. So we can see here, the army that Alicia has is really catered to deal with Ultras. But if Sen keeps the Ultras back, uses them just to basically guard the Broodlords from like Archons pushing forward or Blinkstalkers, the Broodlords will just tear apart this army.
Yeah.
I mean, potentially Storms can actually kill Broodlords if they're too clumped.
Get in range.
But as long as Sen, doesn't have all the Broodlords super clumped, and of course he can just transfuse them in between Storms.
And Blink just now started, by the way.
Yeah. So this is going to be very difficult for Alicia to defend.
Alicia does have 4 bases. If he can just defend this base on the right-hand side, he's going to be very happy. But again, he doesn't necessarily have an answer to these Broodlords. So definitely caught a little bit off guard here by the transition. The High Templar coming forward again. the majority of the anti-air is in the form of those storms. One storm going down, two storms going down, trying to get that damage done to the Broodlords. Transfuses there, you called it, onto those Broodlords, trying to keep them alive, but great storms here from Alicia. More transfuses going down, plenty of energy on these queens, and those Broodlords aren't going anywhere.
Oh man, he brought all the Broodlords down to basically red, where
they're all green and happy again.
That just did not work.
I wish we had queens in real life. When I get sick, I can just be like, hey, can you transfuse me, please?
That would be awesome.
That'd be pretty sick.
You know, we should invent those. Of course, Alicia has to sacrifice his 4th base, and now he has Blink almost up, but with those Ultras there...
I don't see how he can engage this optimally. Viper's coming forward, going through the abducts. Oh, the blinding clouds nailing those Colossi, meaning they can't shoot. Because it does limit their range. The Broodlord's still doing a ridiculous amount of damage. The 4th base getting denied. And Sen, this Broodlord transition doing so much damage. It might even win him the game, as crazy as it sounds.
All of the Immortals from Alicia catered to kill Ultralisk, not useful against the Broodlords. There goes the Blink in, but if the transfuses are good, the Broodlords should stay alive.
Oh, the Stalker's trying to get warped in underneath those Broodlords by the use of that pylon. The Broodlords trying to get targeted down there. Queens need to transfuse over and over again. Lots of Immortals in this competition. The Colossi starting to do a lot of damage to this Queen. We do have a little bit of a counterattack into Alicia's natural expansion, but Alicia's attention is right here at this 4th base. Can he hold it off?
I think he can. In fact, the Storms actually force the Queens to use all their energy, and then the Stalkers are able to finish off the Broodlords. Unfortunately, his natural has been absolutely ravished by these Speedlings. In fact, the Nexus could go down.
11 Ultras in production, by the way.
Oh man, a beautiful transition, knowing that he's already cleared up all the meat. And if the Ultras can get in close to those Immortals, they can actually do okay against them, even though Immortals kill Ultras very quickly.
All right, Alicia recognizing he has to get damage done because his natural is gone. His main base is under attack as well. So he's coming straight for the natural expansion. Some Ultras are here, but Immortals are pretty darn good against Ultras. They might just melt away, but some Lings coming forward. That's exactly what he needs against the Immortals. The Colossi able to do a lot of damage to those. Sen trying to overwhelm his opponent. He has a superior economy. He has a superior army of 172 to 70 supply, trying to take out Alicia in this game number 2, and these Ultras might be able to clean up this force.
Man, the Ultras are... Yeah, they were coming in 2 or 3 at a time. He didn't wait to get all of them together, and Alicia was able to pick them off even with the blinding clouds. I still think with all these Speedlings rallying in...
Speedlings alone against Colossi might actually be good here.
Yeah, I mean, if there's nothing to tank... Oh, beautiful abducts there. These Colossi...
There's the GG from Alicia, and Sen takes game number 2. What a fun game. That was it. Do you think that came down to the Broodlord transition? Does Alicia need to identify that? Maybe go into Tempest production or something?
He does, but it's very hard to tell how much his Zerg is committing to Ultras. We saw there what Alicia did. He set up beautiful pylon walls to allow himself to establish 4 bases. And if Sen maxed out an Ultras, he would have then been stuck in a weak position. But instead, he just got 5 to 6 Ultras, enough to say, if you come out into open and fight me, I will take you out. And Alicia overcommitted a bit to those Immortals. You know, if he stopped a few Immortals earlier, and like you said, maybe he was able to get Tempest up.
Because he had that 4th base. He had, what is that, 8 gases, unless my math is terrible.
It is true. The 4th was, you know, it didn't really come up until the game was, like, the Broodlords were already out, so that gas wouldn't have kicked in time. And I think a lot of Protoss are afraid to try to tech the Tempest that fast. You know, he would have had to start teching when he's at about 140 food, which is a very scary thing to do.
All right, guys, we have a spectacular series on our hands once again. Every match has been fantastic so far in WCS America Round of 16. Coming up next, it's going to be the resolution of the tie series between Alicia and Sen. They're tied 1-1. The winner of the next game will advance to the winner's match to play Snoot. Guys, stay tuned. You're watching WCS America.